Presidential candidate Bernie Sanders coming out swinging, taking direct aim at Donald Trump over immigration. The Vermont senator spoke yesterday at the Congressional Hispanic Caucus Institute's annual conference in Washington, D.C., and he slammed Trump's comments about some undocumented immigrants from Mexico being, quote, rapists and criminals.
There is no justification for racist attacks against one group of people. To call people, for example, who come from Mexico, rapists or criminals. That is not acceptable, and that is not the kind of discourse we should be seeing in the United States of America.
And as Vice President Joe Biden weighs a potential presidential run of his own, he didn't hold back while meeting with a group of Latino leaders in the nation's capital earlier this week.
Make no damn apologies for anything. Just go out and make our case straight up. Straight up. We will win just simply on the decency of what we are fighting for.
Well, joining me now is editor of Latino coverage and Buzzfeed News, Adrian Carrasquillo. Adrian, thanks for being with us here. I want to get to a lot here, but first, the comments by Vice President Biden. How are they resonating, especially given he hasn't made an announcement on his decision so far?
I mean, he sure sounds like a candidate. You know, last week he was talking to the Human Rights Campaign, calling basically the Republican field homophobes. And here he was in front of Latino donors and operatives and basically talking about the Republican field being a bunch of nativists. And, you know, he said something interesting. He was at a Hispanic Heritage Month event, and he felt that everybody was depressed and everybody was sad. He even hung his head and said that, you know, he had never seen this before. And he said he feels it's because of the beatdown Hispanics are taking from the Republican Party. You know, he sounded like a candidate, and you know, everybody that I spoke to and sort of some of the younger folks seemed kind of excited that he might jump into the race and add his voice and you know, the gravitas as the vice president to this conversation around immigration.
Talk about Bernie Sanders here when he slams Donald Trump's comments about some undocumented immigrants from Mexico, and we see the surge with Bernie Sanders. It's been continuing on. He's filling these venues with this kind of rock star support. What is the Sanders campaign strategy when it comes to getting more of this Latino votes?
Well, it's very interesting. The Sanders campaign acknowledges that they need to be more known among Hispanics. They don't have the name ID. Of course, no one has the name ID that Hillary Clinton has. But, you know, they've already started. They're making hires in Nevada. They're making hires in Texas. You know, you saw yesterday at CHCI, the Congressional Hispanic Caucus Institute, when he gave his speech, he talked about his trademark, you know, economic inequality. Hispanics make up 16% of the population, but only have 2.2% of the wealth in this country, he said. But most of the focus was on immigration. He wanted the crowd to know that he's an ally in immigration. He talked about the Senate bill, how he supports the Senate, how he supported the Senate bill, but talked about how he didn't like that some of the path to citizenship stuff was tied to border triggers. So he very much wanted the crowd to know that he's an ally in immigration.
Also interesting when it comes to the Latino vote, how Hillary Clinton will factor in. This week, she, in a Telemundo interview, kind of went against the White House, the Obama administration's deportation policies, calling them too harsh. One of, you know, kind of a growing list of policies where she's been kind of separating herself from President Obama and those policies. So what is she doing as far as this strategy in winning those Latino voters and how that may be resonating?
I mean, Hillary Clinton has a long, enduring relationship with the Hispanic community going back decades to South Texas in the 1970s. But at the same time, what you see now is very interesting because Biden might be jumping into the race, and here to a Latino audience on Telemundo, she says, well, the administration has been too harsh and aggressive on deportation policy. That's very interesting, and that's not something that she's really said before in that way. And so you already see a little bit of kind of separating herself from the administration and saying, if she were president, you know, she would use, you know, deferred action. She would use sort of the enforcement priorities as the way that she sees them to be less harsh, to keep more undocumented in the country as opposed to getting deported. It's a very interesting strategy.
Oh, absolutely, especially with that landscape that may change if and when Joe Biden announces that decision on if he'll run. Adrian Carrasquillo, thank you as always.